naturally going into how to get a little more insight beyond that recommend question. And best practices, as it has evolved in the past decade since Net Promoter Score first hit the scene, is that it's been identified that developing driver questions, just a handful of driver questions to go along with that one question that you're surveying people with, helps to figure out, what is driving loyalty. So how do you develop those questions? That's what this is all about. It's about utilizing something like the Balanced Scorecard. And what the Balanced Scorecard is good for is it's good for identifying strategic areas that organizations have to excel in to be able to be strong and to have the sustainability, and not just in areas of profit or areas in being financially stable. We know about that. That's what the stock market's all about. It's a look back instead of a look forward. And this Balanced Scorecard approach is about strategically looking forward. So in developing questions that would go with NPS, consider this. If you were able to develop questions that would help give you insight into how well educated the people are that are providing your services, and education doesn't need to be an AA or BA or an MA. Education can simply, of course, mean training. How learned is your staff and able to provide the services in the best way that they possibly can? That could include volunteers. Service, how well is the customer, how well is the customer receiving the service? And that's what the NPS score gives a little of insight of course, but you can go a little bit deeper into that as far as the customer perspective, the process perspective. How easy is it for people to deal with your organization? Where are the processes, what are the key points in the process that intersect with the customer experience? And developing questions that start to give insight there is very valuable. And then as you can see, these arrows sort of all just sort of link the boxes into the sustainability realm. And by making sure that your employees are trained and that your customer experience is delivered right, and that the process is free of unnecessary kinks, then you get to an area of sustainability from your offerings perspective. And from a nonprofit perspective, that means your ability to, of course, go out and seek more funds, because you're proving that your organization is solid in a forward-thinking way. So in getting this and going to the next slide, we'll sort of see how we would break it down in the development of some sample questions. So what the sample questions would do is that they would reinforce your strategic needs and also provide insight on what drives loyalty. So as these, maybe your learning question, this would be a sample volunteer, like the volunteer thinks that they have enough training to best contribute to an organization. You can see how that ties in with the learning tier of the Balanced Scorecard. The company is responsible, or the organization is responsive to my needs as a volunteer. There's your service component. The process, I'm effective in helping ABC serve its members. So if they're not effective in doing that, what is it in the process that's holding that volunteer up? So what you're doing is you're taking your audience, you're taking their perspective, their expectations, their reasoning for volunteering, and you are capturing that in the questions, and you would do that for every single audience group. And as you start over time being able to benchmark and see what happens with your NPS score, you can also benchmark what is happening with these questions. And then as some go up, maybe the NPS score goes up, or, you can see how far the NPS score might go up according to, the feedback that you're getting on these various questions. That takes a little bit of analysis, but it's analysis that's well worth it, because then you know how to operationalize all of this information into a strategic mode, into those 4 tiers. Also, another component of Net Promoter Score with the promoter, detractor, passive groups. That's another way to categorize the information and operationalize it for priority. Of course, you want to make sure those trending issues in the detractor group are taken care of. The issues that are making promoters the happiest aren't changed, and they're expanded, or they're shared across departmental lines, or what have you. So, operationalizing all of this information with the Net Promoter Score approach can be done in all sorts of ways. That's one of the great things about this program. So let's go to the next slide. It's just a little bit of a visual on what we're talking about here, is that you've got all of these driver questions. Don't do a lot of them, 7, 8 maximum. Keep the survey nice and short. And with those being strategic in those balanced scorecard areas, watch them and see what happens to your NPS score and correlation. So it is a proven methodology, by the way, this NPS approach. It has been correlated directly to growth and revenue. It's, as you can see here, I believe it's really intuitive. It's easy to communicate, and hopefully, that is getting across to you in this webinar. And it's action-oriented. You can see how the information can be segmented in ways that it makes it clear on what needs to happen. So probably one of the most important things is how to set up, your communications in all this, and consider communication in the role of the Net Promoter Score. But before we get there, Howard, with everything with the balanced scorecard, which you're very knowledgeable on, and ways to develop those driver questions, you've done this for several companies. Can you offer maybe a 1, 2, 3 on what to consider on developing driver questions that are relevant to NPS? I mean, beyond the balanced scorecard approach, how do you generally start to develop those kind of questions?
That's a really a great question that passed on there. That you have to put the hat on. I guess the easiest way to do that, the 1, 2, 3, would be to put the hat on of the customer. So from the customer's perspective, why do they do, quote, business with your organization? Why is a volunteer working, spending their time with your organization? What does it take to solidify that relationship between the volunteer and the organization? So it's different for different organizations, like what you had in the previous slide from the balanced scorecard. It's a great way to start looking at how does the organization provide value to the particular customer group. So why am I in this thing? And so if we go back, I don't go back on the slide, but just stop and think about the process. If I'm a volunteer, I want to make sure that I can help serve organizations. So if I'm not effective in doing that, being a volunteer could be very time-wasting. And also to be able to do that, am I getting enough training? Or are you just throwing me in the hopper? And I feel really stressed out and so forth in different organizations. So situations. So what we need to do is from the 1, 2, 3, put the mindset on of the customer. Why are they doing what they're doing? How can we then provide value to do that a little bit better? So then what we will have with these, quote, driver questions, these are then through a cause and effect relationship, we can determine what then pushes or improves loyalty. So through this quantitative analysis called a regression analysis, we can then benchmark it, as you said, as we go forward and inside the organization to bring more help, more support, and improve the value in the relationship. So that's something that we've added, the drivers to the work that we do. The Reicheld, the developer of the ultimate question, does not necessarily address that. So we do have additional information on that we can provide for folks if they're interested in working into that realm and developing the drivers. But it takes a little bit of time through qualitative and quantitative analysis, but you can come up with the best ones and really then be able to benchmark and move the organization forward.